With me today is Chief of Police, Muskogee Police Department, Johnny Teehee, Director of OSBI, Ricky Adams. My name is Orville Loge, Muskogee County District Attorney. Yesterday at 3 p.m., Leroy Jamal Smith was arrested for 5 counts of rape. That occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I want to thank the Tulsa Police Department for their assistance in that arrest. He was brought to Muskogee County Jail last night, and he'll be arraigned today at 3 p.m. on the charges that I've sent to you, and that are all, there's a hard copy on the table here if you didn't get one. This was 5 counts of rape from the 1990s. I'm going to talk a little bit about the facts, but first I want to thank some individuals for getting us to this point. First of all, with my office, I want to thank everybody in my office. It's a long time to get here, but we did it. The Muskogee Police Department, Chief Teehee, he and I talked early on about this and what we were going to do, and obviously very supportive. A lot of officers with the Muskogee Police Department over the years have touched these files, worked on these files. A lot of officer power put into getting to this point. Some of those officers, I know I cannot mention all of them, but I'm going to touch on some. Kelly Beach, Stephanie Foster, Bobby Lee, and a special thanks to Bryce Pamplin. Bryce is no longer with us, but he did a lot of work in these, and I know he would be proud today. I also want to thank OSBI Director Ricky Adams and Special Agent Kurt Titsworth. All of the OSBI agents, there's a lot here today, and I'm going to let Director Adams recognize them and talk about them. We could not have done this without OSBI. It was incredible with what's happened, what's transpired to get to this point. I also want to thank Parabon Labs. They were the key. They were the key to getting us to Leroy Jamal Smith. I believe they have a press release or a statement, also a hard copy on that table. So this has been 25 years. The last one we know was in 1995, and it was a long time. About 5 years ago, Captain Stephanie Foster with the Muskogee Police Department brought the file to my office, and I did not give her much hope. She made it a point to bring the file to me, talk to me about it. I could tell what it meant to her and the Muskogee Police Department, but I just did not give her much hope. At that point, it had been 20 years. Could have been easy just to file it away and say there was no hope. But as time went on, I never put the file away. I kept going back to it. There's got to be a way. I knew that we had DNA. I knew that we had his DNA. I just had to identify it. And that's where Parabon and OSBI came in. A couple years ago, I found out about Parabon, and they do the genealogy. And certain things had to happen. So one day, Special Agent Kurt Titsworth was in my office. This was about a year ago. We were talking about a homicide, and I said, by the way, I need your help. This is what I think. This is what I think we can do. I need you to get in touch with Parabon. I need certain things to happen, and I believe that we can get there. And for the first time, what would never happen, I felt very positive that we were going to get there. It was just going to take some time. About a month ago, we started getting information from Parabon, the work they were doing. And about 2 weeks ago is when we first found out about Leroy Jamal Smith. We contacted Tulsa Police Department because we knew he was in that area. We hoped that his DNA was in Tulsa in one of their files, and it was. On a Monday, we retrieved that, took it to the lab in Edmond, and that Friday, it was a match. Since last Friday, we've been working on the arrest warrant and placing him in custody. Yesterday, I spoke with the victims, let them know. I would ask that right now you give him privacy. There'll be more to come. At this time, I want to thank Chief Teehee and ask him to say a few words.
Thank you. The first one I want to thank is our District Attorney, Orville Lowe's. As you can see from the crackling in the voice, that there's a sincerity in him deep inside that wants justice for victims, and he's sincere about that, and that's something that doesn't happen all the time. I was a corporal when the first rape occurred in 1993. I was assigned the first 2 cases. After that first one, you didn't think as much about it, just a case that you worked and try to find somebody that may be a suspect. But then when we had that second one and the identification stuff matched up, it caused obviously some serious alarm across not just our police department, but across our community. And then as we continued through the process and there was more and more of these that took place, there was a fear that gripped Muskogee like I've never seen before. When you have people so scared to the point where they're calling about somebody walking down the road. And we needed that because we didn't want it to happen again. We were so present on the west side where the first 3 or 4 took place that he changed locations and went to the east side. But I remember as I was reading my reports yesterday, being at the hospital and being at the location and talking to the victims, the fear that they had. It's over the course of 33 years, you see a lot of different closures in cases. More often, it's usually something that has to deal with homicides or a missing person that you recover to give that family closure. But I can assure you that from talking to Orville, as he contacted each and every one of the victims yesterday, there was a lot of tears that flowed. So there's got to be a different sense of closure for these victims of such a horrendous crime that they've got to live with for the rest of their lives. So just the ability to do that, thank you for your continued work. I want to thank all of the agents, everybody involved in this. It's an amazing feat. It's amazing the technology that we have today across our country. And the neat thing about that is it gives us the ability to hopefully solve more of these cases across the country. I want to give kind of like what Orville talked about. I want to thank Kelly. He's here today. You never think a whole lot at the time about crime scene collection, but Kelly was a part of that crime scene crew whenever these crimes were occurring. So Kelly, thank you for your work. Same with Stephanie. Stephanie's one that got the ball rolling again with trying to get something done, and like what Orville said, it would have been real easy for just a typical district attorney to say, oh, we don't have any chance of doing that. So again, I want to thank Orville for that as well. And of course, Bryce Pamplin, he was a great guy. He's one that put his heart and soul into his cases, a lot like what Orville does. Bryce was one of those bulldogs that when you put him on something, he was going to find it, and it absolutely crushed him that he was not able to finish with this case. So I just especially want to recognize him as well. It's just a good day. It's a good day. I'm happy for the victims. It's one of those things, again, that it gives them the opportunity to put a sense of closure to it. And it took Once again, it takes more than just one agency. It's not something we could have done by ourselves. The DA's office couldn't have done by themselves. It took a team effort. And I know at one time we had talked to the FBI about it, so all the agencies that were involved, I just want to thank as the Chief of Police of Muskogee to have an opportunity to solve these cases after nearly 30 years is absolutely amazing. So to all of you who had a part in it, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the efforts, and we continue to work together, so thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I'm Director Rick Adams, the Director of the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. And I want to just take a few moments here, first of all, to thank the District Attorney, thank the Chief for the good hard work that went into this case up front leading to the actual arrest. Talked about crime scene agents. Crime scene agents don't collect evidence correctly to start with. If we don't have interviews that takes place right up front, these cases never get solved. Good police work was done up front in these cases, and it helped us to solve it now over 2 decades later. So thank you for what you do. Talk here to the team. With OSBI, we've got a one team, one mission philosophy that we push within the Bureau. That's regardless of your discipline, whether you're an agent, a criminalist, or you work in our information services area. But that's not just within the Bureau. That's one team, one mission when you look at law enforcement and all of our partners, both state, federal, local, sheriff's offices around the state. We are your state's premier investigative organization, and our intent is to provide those services to local agencies on request when they need us, and they need us to come in and help in these cases. Got my team here with me today. Want to just recognize a few that are here. We got several here in the back. We've had a lot of work on this case. The FBI, the police department here locally. We have Tulsa Police Department that's here. Their cold case unit assisted with our cold case unit to work this. Our crew that's here today, we have Kurt Tisworth, which is our agent that was the main agent in this case. Francine Thompson that's here. John Jones that supervises the unit. John, appreciate having you here. We've got our crew at the lab. Over here we got Andrea Fielding, which is our actual director of our laboratory operations here in Oklahoma. Runs forensics, the forensic science criminalist part of our organization across the state. Also with us here today is Grace Helms. Grace is our lead biologist that had a lot to do with this case as far as tying together the serial part of the case. We've got Wendy Duke that's here, Lieutenant Duke. You can raise your hand there. Lieutenant Duke is one of our criminalists that works with our closely as part of our cold case team that we have put together for trying to tie these cases together, not just these type of cases, but other ones from across the state. And then Leslie Perry, which is going to be our in-house, and currently is our in-house expert when it comes to genealogy, dealing with our biology unit. Thank you all for what you do every day, and I want to have a chance to recognize the quality work there. This is a service here that we hope to provide it to help find answers in some of the most heinous crimes that affect the state. When we started into the genealogy world, we only use this technique, have started using this technique in the most serious crimes. Crimes like murder, rape, or if we have a homicide that's unsolved and we don't know who a victim is out there, we're able to use this type of technology to try to, first of all, in a case, to try to find out who the victim is so you can try to solve a crime. So that's what we're trying to do in these cases, and that's where this time was one of those cases where we knew a suspect that was in common with all these cases, but we did not have an identity. And the identity was not into CODIS as far as who the suspect was. And so we had to sift through the grains of sand and try to figure out how we could solve this particular case. And with that, we went to the services of Parabond. Parabond, as you got the statement in front of you, only uses public sources. So people that's opted in to go into those. Those sources is what they use to develop, basically thin the grains of sand out so we have a much smaller pool to have to look at. At that point in time is when it comes down to just good, hard police work and detective work. And those are the folks that you see stand here in the room. They have to go out and make the contacts with the old cases, make the contacts with the other units, and then hopefully secure warrants and go after folks that we may have identified. I can say today we feel equally as touched and emotional about the fact that we've brought an answer to families, to some victims, and they don't have to look over their shoulder anymore, which is an important thing to us also. In these cases, we know that there's going to be more of these. Right now, we have a sexual assault kit program that those kits that have been in the backlog for years are now sitting in our laboratory and other places here around the state as we're getting them in. We're going to find more of these type of cases as we sift through these many ones over the coming years. And it's going to take teams like this and the folks that are in the room to bring these cases together and to find answers for victims out there. With that being the case, I know that there's probably going to be other victims, even in this particular case. I'm not saying there is, but we believe that there may have been. So if you happen to have been in the area during those times, or you were assaulted and you were a victim, please contact the Muskogee Police Department, contact the Tulsa Police Department if it's in the Tulsa area, or feel free to call the OSBI at 1-800-522-8017 or tips@osbi.ok.gov. Pass that information on to us so we can get you in contact with an agent, or at least get the report taken so we can see if this may have also been a case that was tied in with your assault or something else that had occurred. At that point, folks, we're just honored and privileged to have had the opportunity to work with y'all and to have had such a great outcome. At this point, Mr. D, I'll leave it to you for any follow-up questions, and I've got a team here if we have any of those.
Do you have any questions?
Can someone speak to the composite picture that was drawn, I believe, with Muskogee PD and some of the victims? Talk about how that helped, and it sounds like you didn't know the identity until 2 weeks ago, right?
That's correct.
You had a name to search for it. How did that composite picture play a role?
What the composite picture did is, once we put that together with our first victim, as we went through the process, the victims after that immediately said, "Yeah, that's him." So it was important, more so than just the MO. It gave us something to say, "Yeah, that's a likeness of him." And with regards to what the director said, also, we know for a fact that there were more cases in Muskogee. We know of at least 2 and possibly 3 that we got information on that they didn't want to report or did not report at the time. Also, about the time it stopped in Muskogee, we got some information that had started up in Tulsa. So I truly believe that there'll be more cases from this, whether from Muskogee or in Tulsa, that this man's responsible for.
So that picture back then, that's the same guy.
Yes.
Not mistaken.
I mean, obviously not looking like him 30 years later, but we were confident in that sketch because of what the other victims' identifications were from.
Are all of the victims alive to seek justice?
One of the victims passed away in 2015. The other 4 are alive. But the family of the deceased knows.
Can you talk about the test? A lot of people talk about genealogy testing for themselves. Is it very similar to what I can get in my house?
Well, yes and no. I'm going to defer the technical part to Grace. Grace, would you come up? This is Grace Helms. She's over our biology unit at our lab. And just in case you need Leslie, you can call her up here. Feel free to.
So the company that we use, Parabon, they are using publicly open databases that are used for these third-party genealogy databases that anyone in the public can get and submit their DNA to. Does that answer your question?
So it's like 23.
Yes. Essentially.
Only
Similar.
Dan. Was that the only question you had for her? Go ahead.
So to kind of follow up on that, so the sequence of events was that somebody in Leroy Jamal Smith's family opted into one of these databases, and that started you guys down the track towards him.
Yes. At some point in the past.
Did you get any DNA off of his I know he was acquitted of murder, but did any evidence collected then help you all with finding him in this current situation?
Yes.
that would be a pure guess on anybody's part that's here.
The only reason I gave the numbers is because we know, like I said, of at least 2 that we know for sure, and probably a third that he would have been responsible for, but they would not report and would not talk to us about it.
When the suspect left this area, obviously he moved out of it. So that's when he moved into the Tulsa area. So
Is that a surprise that he was just down the road, or is that usual?
I think in anything to do with a criminal that you can't really consider it a surprise. I don't think there's any time you could actually be surprised at anything that a criminal would do.
You mentioned that you believe there were reports of similar cases popping up in Tulsa after they stopped in Muskogee. Were there, outside of the composite sketch that was used by later victims to identify the person, were there operating methods, were there other identifiers that were consistent across these cases?
Right. Descriptions of the suspect, the MO of the suspect, how he committed the crime, those things matched with some cases that started popping up in the Tulsa area.
the one thing that you find in many of these cases, when they cross jurisdictional lines, the victimology in these cases aren't entered into what we call a program called VICAP, which is an FBI program. Those victimologies are entered into there. It helps our analysts link cases easier. And so there's no telling, this was in the early 90s, whether those programs were even used at the time. So the real important part of this is that the technology that we have today, tests were run on this both by the FBI and by the OSBI many years ago. But first test that was run with an old type of DNA testing, which is, what's the acronym again?
RFLP.
Okay, the Bureau has since gone to a newer method, which is being used today by most criminal labs around the state. But then we have what they run with, like what you would get for 23andMe, those type of programs are
SNPs.
SNPs type of DNA. So it's a little bit more refined each time you move up the link.
So you would not have had any DNA related to him without somebody giving a Christmas or birthday present to a family member, is that right?
I can't answer that. So I don't
He
know.
went in CODIS or anything?
He was not. Well, he was in CODIS as a suspect with no name. So we knew these cases were linked. There wasn't a face to go with that DNA at this point.
Until the genealogy test.
Until we were able to narrow it down. So
Were all these women, did they know anything of this man? Just total strangers to this man?
Total strangers,
Nothing that ties them all?
no ties.
Orville, I'd like to ask you a question in front of the microphone. Obviously, you're so attached to this, and in the beginning you were joking about how thankful are you that there's now someone in jail because of this?
Yeah, so whenever he was arrested, there was probably 10 of us at the Tulsa PD. We were listening on the radio. We told the warrant squad, here's the warrants, here's what we know. Of course, they knew him. It was good.
What was that phone call like when they couldn't?
Tough. It's very tough. The fact that they know now, the fact that there's answers, if I had to describe it, it's probably a 200-pound cement coat taken off of them.
So is this man just living a normal life in Tulsa and thinking that he's gotten away with it all these years?
Yes.
What was the arrest? Do you know any details of that?
So the arrest, we had actually 2 warrants. One was for a failure to pay court costs. The other was the rape case. So when he came out, he asked, what's this about? And the only thing we told him at that point was that fair to pay court costs from Muskogee, and that he must have made a judge in Muskogee mad. Once he was in custody, in cuffs, and booked in, he was told.
Say anything after that that you can tell us?
I cannot talk about what he said.
Has he explained how he chose who he targeted?
I cannot talk about what he said.
So moving forward, you have these 5 victims, but you suspect there are others. Are you just going to move forward with the original 5 and then prosecute the others later, or do you attach them on later if you find evidence linking them?
So we'll go forward. If other cases come in, we'll evaluate them. And if we can prosecute them, we will. I'm sure Tulsa will be on alert for cases that may come in. But if we can make a case on him, we will.
Is there a feeling that it's okay now to come tell us?
I sure hope so. I sure hope there are victims out there thinking that he is in jail and that they can come forward now.
Do you have any idea how recently someone could have become a victim, or is there any scope of victims decades ago or?
So he's 50 years old. If you assume that he started at 18, that would have been 1987 up until yesterday is our scope.
What kind of sentencing option are you thinking of the rest of his life because of what you have in
We'll be,
these 5? Is that an
we'll,
option?
we'll be seeking life in prison.
Is there, you think, as of yesterday, something we could have gotten another?
We don't know, but he's now in custody. Up until the point he was put cuffs on and in custody, everything's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.